Thank you, Chairwoman Rogers. And we just had our organizational meeting, and for those in the public, we're very proud of the fact that we now have the first woman chairperson of the Energy and Commerce Committee in its long history that goes back to almost the first days of the Republic. So let me just make that announcement. I'm sure all of you realize it, but I want to mention it again. Now, I want to say that we're meeting for the committee's first hearing of the 118th Congress. The first few weeks of any Congress are an opportunity to lay out our priorities for the next 2 years. But unfortunately, the energy bills that Republicans have brought to the floor this month have only demonstrated just how misguided and misplaced their priorities are. Both bills that were mentioned by the chairwoman, the one that dealt with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in China, and the one that we just dealt with yesterday or last week that dealt with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and said that we couldn't use it unless we opened up more public lands on the same percentage basis. They're both misguided because they limited this administration, or was an attempt to limit this administration's ability to bring down gasoline prices at the pump. And instead of moving towards clean energy, which is the future and the only way that we're going to have less dependence on dictators and have less volatility in the market, there was an attempt to try to give more opportunities to big oil, which frankly they don't even want, right? I mean, we know that during this the gasoline crisis that we've had over the past year or so, this idea that somehow big oil wanted to pump more, they wanted to pump the leases they already had was simply not the case. They wanted to keep the price artificially high. That's another reason why they opposed using the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, because it brought prices down. So all I'm basically saying is, as we move towards an energy transition, let's keep in mind that encouraging renewables, as we did with the Inflation Reduction Act, as we did with the bipartisan infrastructure law, this is the way to go in the future. I am certainly one of the key people that believes that we have to use all sources of energy, whether it's nuclear, hydropower, the other things that the chairwoman mentioned, certainly all of the above. But the bottom line is that we're going to be left behind if we don't move towards renewables and encourage them the way that we did with the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, the chairwoman mentioned China. Make no mistake that the rest of the world, including China, are already embarked on a major transition to clean energy. In fact, China's investment in clean energy are so vast that the International Energy Agency forecasts that over the next several years, 40% of solar and wind energy growth will come from China alone. And yet, Republicans consistently oppose our efforts to catch up. If we don't move towards clean energy, if we don't use the proceeds of and the credits and the other incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act, we're going to be left behind. And that's going to mean left behind in terms of innovation, left behind in terms of the number of jobs that are created. And the irony of it is that although most, if not all, Republicans in the House voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, that many of those credits are going to the very red states and the industries in the very red states that want to take advantage of it. So this is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is a bipartisan issue. We need to move towards clean energy. Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention that one of our witnesses today is Dr. Unra Cohen. I want to thank her for all of her work as staff director for the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. I look forward to her testimony and the testimony of all the panel. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank my longtime, or our longtime staff director of our Energy and Environment Policy team, Rick Kessler, who's retiring this week. After 25 years of dedicated service to Congress, of which 12 years were spent with this committee, Rick has more than earned his retirement. Earlier in his career, Rick also worked in my personal office on energy and environmental issues. And last Congress, Rick was instrumental in our work on the Inflation Reduction Act, fighting to make sure meaningful climate investments, including many provisions from our own Clean Future Act, were included. And during his tenure, he was also instrumental in helping us pass the Frank Lautenberg Chemical Safety Act, the Pipeline Safety Act, legislation phasing down the use of dangerous HFCs, and many, many more energy and environmental laws. So he's been a devoted member of my team and our team, always guiding us by a sincere desire to improve people's lives. And I'm personally grateful for his many years of service. Wish him nothing but the best in the future. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.